Welcome everybody to our second episode of So Spiritual. If you see my eyes wandering from away from the camera here, that's because we're airing live on Instagram and Facebook at the same time. Welcome everybody to the place where we can discuss all these aspects of spiritual awakening and what this does to us and how this feels in our body and how to better deal with this. All right, my name is Bryndis and I'm a professional energy healer and energy coach. I train energy healers from all around the world. So if you would like to ask me questions, this is the place. All right, I pick a subject for every day, and today is the topic, what is supernatural, what isn't. All right, and if you look at my outfit here today, you're going to see a few things. I'm dressed in black, and all these things have to do with how to deal with the supernatural. What is supernatural? Let's get started right away. What is a supernatural experience that you've had in your life, and what did this do to you? And while you're thinking about this, I'm going to just sort of reflect on the energies for today. Today is a day here in the Northern Hemisphere, the winter solstice, in the Southern Hemisphere, the summer solstice. Those are shift changes, really big events for us empaths and energetically sensitives. So this is a time where our perception is really heightened, and this is why I wanted to talk to you guys about the supernatural, because it is very common around these times that we have intense dreams, lucid dreaming, even maybe with our eyes open, or we see things moving in the room. We feel that there is a different presence in the room, or we get messages from within. So I want you to know this particular time, it's wonderful to see your hearts, thank you, that this particular time is really difficult for an empath or an energetically sensitive person who is not trained. So what does training mean? This has to do with being able to read your own energies, knowing what your own energies are, but most likely also knowing what the energies in the place are that you're at, how the people's energies around you affect you, and how to better deal with them. Okay, so let's talk about this here today. Who of you has had an experience with supernatural energies? And supernatural here is defined as something that is not part of what most people would describe the scene or the normal. Okay, let's just call everything supernatural here for a moment, okay, until we take this apart and learn a little bit more about this. That cannot be explained. Who of you have had those kind of experiences in their life, or is having them right now? The energy barometer, the stress gauge for today, is at a slightly elevated level. You guys will probably have more physical problems today. The peak of this solstice wave is going to be this afternoon, between 5 and 6 p.m. Eastern time, and so you will probably feel more and more physically worn out throughout the day. Okay, so this is important that you understand this, because when you're going through something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are getting sick or that this is coming in for just you. There's a collective experience with that, and that is that our bodies have to vibrate faster. These waves, as I've explained in the energy updates that I do weekly, they force us to expand. And as we expand, the more dense physical part and also the emotional and mental is denser than our etheric part of our energy body kind of lags behind, and this can lead to nausea. This can lead to really, really strong headaches, pain in the neck, the typical empath pain, you know, this feeling that there's stuff coming in from the outside. Yes, and I see your comments. This is wonderful. Yes, you have had glimpses in your peripheral. This is a very common way of perceiving the supernatural. Okay, this is you know, you see shadows. You see, some people call it the morph. It doesn't really matter what you call it. What it really is that your heightened perception has a much larger radius. It has a much larger bandwidth than your visual or your perception through five senses, and therefore, so you're gonna experience things that don't necessarily have anything to do with you know, or related to you, but things that are outside of your brain's capacity to interpret. And the way we feel those things is that we can either sense them. So people who are very tactile, people who are very physical in nature or kinesthetic in nature, they will feel this maybe as like sort of temperature dropping or increasing, or it will feel like a little gust of wind, you know, is brushing over your skin, or you will feel things, you know, like a gut punch, or you know, like a squeezing in your throat. Those are very typical experiences for energetically sensitives. Okay, this is nothing, you know, that indicates that there's something wrong with you. Okay, so this is why we talk about this here, because we all have this ability to perceive things that are much farther out there than just what our brain can interpret. And if you've been watching the energy updates, I talk about this quite a lot, you know, accepting the limitations of the mind. And why do I keep saying this? Because the mind is linked to our memories in the past, all right? So it can only really interpret what it knows. And when something is perceived that it doesn't know, then the brain sort of creates a category for this. This is like, you know, sort of something scary, something unknown, something maybe ghost or something like this. Yes, and I can see here by your comments that you are feeling like you're falling sick and that you've had insomnia. Yeah, thanks for insomnia. That is a very common side effect of heightened perception. You will feel that it's difficult for you to sleep. It's not necessarily because you don't want to. It's more like, you know, there's stuff going on, and you can feel that there's stuff going on, but you don't know what it is. Okay, so I would love for you guys to comment more and ask me specifically, but I will give you a few tips and tricks here. Okay, when you deal with the supernatural, and I would like to you know, rephrase the supernatural here a little more into like the unseen, all right, or let's call them energetic sensations. Energetic sensations keeps it a bit more neutral. So when you're experiencing energetic sensations, you're experiencing something outside of your mental, your intellectual mind, that cannot be interpreted at this very moment. Okay, so what you need to do in those moments is, first of all, something that we talked about yesterday, is to not react. Okay, to not go into this like, oh my God, you know, what is happening? We all have these horror movies playing in the back of our minds, and we see the chainsaw coming around the corner and whatnot. By the way, I would not recommend to watch horror movies if you are an energetically sensitive person or empath. That is like oil on your fire, because we get so easily pulled into this fear. And when you have images that are stored in your brain that kind of illustrate all that, then this fear can get real. I mean, you can get really carried away from it. So the number one rule when you experiencing energetic sensations is that you do not panic, do not go into fear. Take a breather. If you have to count till 10, but it's more really about the breathing into your heart and centering yourself more, so that you are more like within yourself. When we talk about etheric protection in a different episode here, I will explain to you why this is essential, why this is instrumental really, to stay in your center, to not go into this place where you panic and where you try to investigate, or you try to capture this, or you try to protect yourself from it. So either way, whether you try to go towards it or away from it, it's going to put you off center, and that's going to make it more intense for you, and also more dangerous etherically. Yeah, so if you are, feeling sick right now, or you're feeling like you're having a migraine come on, or you feel nauseous, I do, okay? So the last 24 hours were really, really difficult for me. Then understand that this is not necessarily the case. You're not getting sick, you're not having a migraine, you are having energetic sensations. And what can you do, to not sort of make this worse? Allow them to go through. You do not resist. Okay. Now, when it comes to, and this is only because I'm contextualizing energetic sensations for you here with the solstice energies that are very, very intense right now. Okay. So when it comes to like actually having an encounter with supernatural, with entities, astral entities, all right, then what I said earlier is the only thing that you really can do, and that is to completely center yourself. I know that there is this myth that you have to like surround yourself with white light. Guys, listen to me, this is one of those new age wrong exits. It's a myth. If you surround yourself with white light while actively encountering a supernatural or external or especially dark entity, it's like you are putting all spotlights on you. You're like a sitting duck, okay? You're like fodder, okay? So don't surround yourself with white light. You can work with white light, but don't surround yourself with it, okay? This is like putting all flashlights on you, okay? When you're dealing with an entity or something supernatural, the fastest way to get through this safely is to take this breather, is to go into your heart and center yourself, all right? And this it even counts when you're dreaming, okay? When you're dreaming, you're really operating your etheric body. The reason why I mentioned in the beginning that we need training, to better deal with these things, is because if you don't know how to operate your etheric body, how to maneuver your energetic body, how to navigate, okay, then what happens is that you feel powerless, and that you feel maybe pinned down or choked, or like a paralysis where you can't move. Has any one of you ever experienced this before, that when you are in a dream that you feel like completely immobilized, that you feel like really, really like somebody's holding you down? Has anyone ever experienced this before? You can learn how to counteract this, guys. This is not like a possession or anything. This has nothing to do with you being attacked at that moment. It can be, but it's really rare. Yes, someone is sharing here very, very strong energies here in the last 24 hours. Yes, and what these things do, sorry, we're jumping back and forth a bit, but this is when you do live, it's not like you can control this. I really want to honor your guys' posts. So, and just so you know, there's a massive rain and storm here behind me. So this is why I'm wearing headphones, because the rain was so loud yesterday, even inside. I couldn't prevent this from being in the background noise. So the problem with these times where it's so intense, be it in a specific situation like a dream or something, or like the solstice energies that we're experiencing right now, is that it will pull your etheric body into a place outside of your center. And this then not only makes this experience more intense, but it also pulls in darker energies. Okay, so supernatural is really not a very good way of categorizing energies. It'd be better to say that you're dealing with outer energies. This keeps it a little more neutral. And then, of course, you have to learn how to discern whether an energy is benign or not, whether it's actually, harming you or trying to, feed on your energy, or trying to, take something away from you. And for this, I recommend etheric training, because when you can operate your etheric body, then you can translate that into your dream state. I know this sounds a little weird, but it's actually possible. So you have to do this consciously, train it, build the muscle memory of how to maneuver yourself etherically. And then you can also apply this in your dream state. This works, guys. Yes. And it's really important when you feel this pull into these astral worlds, where there's all kinds of stuff. And sometimes, the stuff that comes in as waterfalls and unicorns, as I call it. It comes in as beautiful scenes. But this doesn't necessarily mean that it is benign. And just because something feels a little dark doesn't mean that it's necessarily dark. Okay? So the discernment of an energy has a lot to do with your personal repertoire here, and how strong and how confident you feel. The number one rule, I've already mentioned this, is no fear, guys. No fear. And the number two rule, and this is where most of you have an issue in your 3D lives, is clear boundaries. Nothing and nobody has the right to be in your space if you don't allow this. So, this is why so many dark energies mask themselves as, spirit guides, or people who, or entities who want to give you guidance, or even as your past grandmother. You got to be really, really careful when it comes to these things, because this is how you let them in. This is how you allow them to actually be in your field. So you have to be more conscientious about this, and the training that I mentioned, this needs to be done in a conscious state or semi-conscious state. This needs to be done in meditation. This is why people meditate, and this is what can actually literally help you to stay safe. So let's back up here a little bit when it comes to the supernatural. We've got the issues that we can perceive this in different ways. So some people perceive it physically, some people perceive it visually, some people perceive it through voices that they're hearing, auditory messages. And then we have the next issue, and that is the discernment whether these entities or energies that you're dealing with are benign or not. And last but not least, you have the problem that you have to discern whether these are yours or somebody else's. For someone who's trained, it's very easy. For me, it's very easy to identify where the energies come from, what person, who is doing this, all right? And I can do countermeasures. But if you're not trained, then the safety rule number one is to immediately go into your center, breathe. Don't be afraid. Do not project white light around you. Instead, feel the light, the white light in you, really in your heart center. This is a big one, guys. And we talk about the etheric protection episode here for So Spiritual in a couple of days. Why? All right. But when it comes to dealing with outer energies, and this is how I would like to contextualize the supernatural, you have to know what they're doing, and you have to know what your space is. And if you're not standing in your space, if you're not inhabiting your own space, then you don't know what your space is, and you cannot feel it when somebody else is sucking on it or when somebody else is attacking you. Okay, so rule number 4, boundary work, and literally give it a boot. You gotta kick energies out, even if they feel like your grandma who passed away, or a spirit guide that is contacting you or telling you that it has information for you. They can give you this information. They can, be there for you and serve you in other ways. They do not have to stand in your field. This is not the purpose of, or this is not a safe way of interacting with outer energies. If the energy is benign, this message will come to you in other ways. Remember, your bandwidth, your etheric bandwidth is so much bigger. It's like 3 billion bits, whereas your brain can only process 2 million bits. You get this? All right? There's so much more happening out there. But just because it's, outside of your 5 senses doesn't make it supernatural. It just makes it, we like to call it etheric or energetic. It keeps that a little bit neutral. Now, are there things such as supernatural powers? Yes, absolutely. And for someone who works with their etheric, for someone who works with their energy, meditates regularly and trains this, all right, the superpowers, and we'll have an episode talking about our superpowers as well, but the superpowers in us, that appear supernatural, can be uncovered, and we can totally learn how to use them and how to grow into them. But it isn't that they're like supernatural, as in like magical or something. It is that the reason why we haven't really been naturally been able to access them is because we're too blocked. Our perception is too blocked, and our our alignment is not quite centered enough. All right. Yes, indeed. This happened to you a lot when you were younger, and you always thought it was just you. This is very common, and same here. I grew up with literally, when I closed my eyes, just seeing all these like brutal, violent scenes of people getting decapitated and blood gushing out of. I mean, I don't want to be too graphic here, but as a child, this was a really, really frightening for me. And this is also part of the reason why I shut down my energetic perceptivity as a younger person, which then drove me into a really deep fear, anxiety, and depression with it. And it wasn't until I learned to really embrace my energetic, my etheric perception, until I could heal from this. And then I didn't really have these really negative experiences anymore, because I felt more empowered. So understand, it is not just you, and it is not always directed at you. At times like right now, during the solstice, we are experiencing collective openings of this collective unconscious field, and that means we have a strong influx of the supernatural, okay? And it's not really supernatural, it's always there. Just because this veil is getting lifted and we can see more of it, doesn't mean it wasn't there before. So this is, guys, why I always say, well, everything is real, but not necessarily everything is true. And just because you didn't see it before, doesn't mean it wasn't there before. All right, so this is kind of like the deal here with navigating with or through etheric energies, is that you really need to understand that these are part of our expanded energy body, and our ability to perceive this is natural. All right, but if it's untrained, that's just like if you you can see letters and words, but you can't read them, then none of this makes sense, and then it scares you. And don't make the same mistake as many of us older empaths, that you shut it down, or that you think you have to take medication or drugs or smoke pot, to suppress this, or to make yourself feel a bit more centered. Because when you use external stimuli, you're externalizing that power again, and you're not really learning how to deal with it. We're going to dedicate one episode to plant medicines and what their use is, because there is a use for it, but not to numb yourself, not to shut this down. So each and every one of you here who has had encounters, or frequently has encounters in dreams, or even, sort of in meditation, with, etheric entities, with things that scare you. Do not be afraid, okay? Just learn how to deal with this. But at the same time, do not accept anything in your field unless you really want it. And remember, they mask themselves as, people you love or loved that are past, your pets or whatever. This is how dark entities do it, guys. Okay, so supernatural is not necessarily dark, but in a lot of cases, in my experience as energy healer and energy clearer, guys, the issue why people have these etheric problems, all right, where they feel bombarded, where they feel attacked, where they go into or get pulled into a reality that is really dangerous for them, is because they're pulling it in. And why are they pulling it in? Because they don't know any better. They have never really learned how to discern. So my big tip for you is, just as a repeat here, number one, whenever you experience something that is kind of supernatural, okay, take a breather, center yourself, okay, count till 10 or whatever. Feel your light within your heart. Breathe into your heart, breathe through your heart. Then, try to discern whether this is something that is coming in from the outside. Maybe it's a place that you're at, or a person that you're with, okay? Then ask yourself if this, what this feels like, if this is benign, if this is, something that, feels or is uplifting, is encouraging, or if this is something that could be potentially dangerous for you. The biggest trap here, ego trap, is guides telling you that they have info for you, okay? So a lot of us here are so keen and we're searching so much that we can easily fall for an entity promising us knowledge, and that, guys, is your downfall, okay? If this is information that comes in through the divine field, it will come to you in different ways. You do not have to accept entities in your field manipulating you, doing something with you, giving you food, to offer you stuff. You can say, no, thank you, I do not want you here. If you have info for me, then do this from over there, but not in here, okay? So number 4 is clear boundary work. I will have to cut this off here if it gets too long. People are not watching the videos. But if you would like to comment and ask questions, please use the commentary here, and we will have an edited version of this video on YouTube, so you can comment there as well. Yes, and again, help me, guys, to spread these videos. Push the like button and share those videos, okay? Share them, retweet them, whatever. Sign up for the newsletter so that you get the notifications when the new videos are posted. Sign up for the YouTube channel. And yes, come to our daily live show here at 12 p.m. every day. Thank you so much, everyone. It's wonderful to have you here. Yes, I gotta go now. You stay safe. Enjoy the winter solstice. And you know, if you have dreams, if you have a headache and so forth, you know that it's not all yours. That's mostly collective stuff right now. Okay? And don't be afraid. Text me if you're going through something. All right? Bye bye, everyone. So good to have you here.